Hello everyone. In my previous tutorials, I covered how we can create plugin from the scratch. Uh, how do we install the Atlassian SDK and create a JIRA plugin module to start creating a plugin from the scratch, and then we can import the whole project inside an IDE for the further development. I used an IDE called IntelliJ, and that's what we'll be using going further as well. But this tutorial, I want to cover more about the architecture of the Jira application so that we understand how the plugin can be developed and deployed, and when a user makes a request, what happens, how the life cycle of the plugin gets affected when we install it inside the Jira application, and the different modules we use to target different kind of plugin. So these kind of details will be more easier to understand when we actually look into the application architecture, the Jira application architecture. So let's go ahead and take a look into that. So in the Atlassian documentation, which I have been showing in my previous tutorials, uh, there is a page called Architecture Overview. So this gives the architecture overview of the Jira web application. Uh, so once we understand this, as I said, we'll have more idea how the plugin development and deployment works, how the different plugin modules can be utilized well when we have to make a decision on where to put what, right? So I have already opened this diagram in a different page. So let's go ahead and try to understand what is actually what uh, which we are seeing on the screen right now. Okay. So what happens when we make a request? What happens when we make a request on a browser? For example, your company decides to uh, use Jira, and uh, you have been given a URL, and you do what you do. You go to the URL, you open that, you open a web browser, go to that URL, and provide your credentials, and then click on login. Right? What happens after that? So when a user makes a login request, it goes to a module called Seraph. What Seraph is actually? This is an Atlassian's open source web authentication framework, which takes care of authenticating a user to make sure that this is a valid user and can move forward into the application. But how it works? So the diagram that this is the diagram that Atlassian overview documentation has is missing a small detail here. I'm going to show you how it actually works, how the authentication takes place. Okay. Okay. Then, so Crowd is a single sign-on tool And then again, it could be your LDAP or AD or any directory server. For example, you can use your JIRA internal directory as well, right? So when a user makes a request, this setup module takes care of getting that request from the user, and then it goes to the crowd or any or any SSO tool and makes a request to your LDAP or the Active Directory where your user data resides, and if it finds that okay, this user is valid, then it comes back and lets you navigate to inside the application. But if the response is okay, this is an invalid user, that's where it returns the response and uh, goes back to the user saying that okay, this you I don't know you, I don't know what this user is, so I cannot let you go inside the application. So that's how it works in here. Once the user is authenticated and you are uh, you are you are being identified, you have been identified as a valid user, then it lets you go to the this module web work. So what this component is, this is an Atlassian's uh, uh, web application framework which follows a very known pattern named as MVC pattern. So like for example, Struts is also a web application framework which uses MVC, right? So this is nothing but a web application framework, and it is an MVC framework. And then what happens is, so all the all, okay, I will talk about that those templates later. So for now, you can just understand that this web work is nothing but a web application framework. Okay, then it goes to the Jira utility and manager classes. That's where most of the important business logics are written. So these utility and manager classes will be using a lot when we actually go into the full-fledged plugin development. I'll be covering these I'll be showing up how we can use this classes and utilities when we'll be developing a plugin, a full-fledged working plugin. Then we have this property set, and this property set is an open source framework from Open Symphony that helps us to store properties against entities in a key value pattern. And then it goes to the Office entity engine. This is nothing, and the abbreviation for the Office is Open for Business. So what actually it means is the same thing what the off Open for Business means. Basically, it is ready to take the entity and model the entity and push it to the relational database. So if you know about if you know about Jira, it comes with an inbuilt database, but that's not production ready. So you need to use some relational databases like PostgreSQL, MySQL, or Oracle. So this is how the flow happens, and there are a couple of more important component I want to talk about is the license. This is one of the most important component inside your Jira application. So for example, let's say you go to the application, you logged in, you were able to log in. Now you want to find a Jira issue, but you don't remember the issue ID. So you go into the search bar, you type some vague text based on the summary you provided or summary and in the issue navigator it will show you like different issue keys with that matching text that you have provided in the text bar. So how Jira is able to search all those issue ID based on the text you provided. So, and that actually comes with this license. This is basically the Apache license, and it's a text search engine library, and it is very performance efficient, and that's why even when with a lot of data, when you write the text into the search bar, or you try to search anything in Jira using the search bar based on the text, it quickly gives up you so many results, right? So this license is the reason why why the search in the Jira system is such a powerful feature. So, and then I'll talk about the scheduler service when we'll be developing a plugin which will be using which where we will need to write services and all. But for now, this is another important aspect into the application, how the service and the scheduler are defined. But we'll not worry about this for now. OS workflow. This is as we all know, right? OS workflow is the heart and soul of your Jira application, right? And it is yet another open source framework from Open Symphony Group, and this is extremely useful and powerful framework being used right now inside the Jira application. It gives you it actually drives the whole workflow definition that we define inside the Jira, with the condition and the support for condition, post function, validations, and so on. So this OS workflow is the reason we all find Jira as such a useful, powerful, and flexible tool. And the response back to the user goes in a JSP format. But when we're developing the plugins, we write velocity templates, right? And those velocity templates are nothing but being converted back to the JSPs as response. So to study more about in detail, you can go to the architecture overview page, and you can look into all the different components, what it does, and why they are being used for. So and so in the nutshell, this is how what happens behind the scene when you make a request, when you try to log in into the Jira. And these are like really important component inside the application, and we need to understand these not in like complete detail how it works, but just to understand that okay, these are the component which my plugin or the plugin I'm going to develop will be communicating inside the system, right? And every component will be having some different kind of plugin module, right? For example, if we have to develop a web item, how we are going to use the web work, and if we have to write a service, how we are going to use the how we are going to write a plugin which actually helps us to create a service model, right? So this is what the whole application is based on. And so this is it for this lecture. We'll continue the development, and we'll cover some more details on the SDK part into the next lecture. Thank you.